Yesterday, in the practices of a bodhisattva, we discussed the perfection of generosity. Today, we will talk about the perfection of ethical discipline. Without ethical discipline, one cannot even accomplish one's own benefit. To think of benefiting others is truly laughable. Therefore, without longing for the pleasures of the three realms, guarding pure ethical discipline is the practice of a bodhisattva. If one does not uphold pure precepts, one cannot even achieve personal happiness in the higher realms, and will instead fall into the lower realms. To think of attaining perfect enlightenment for the benefit of others, that is obviously a very laughable matter. If one cannot even accomplish self-benefit, then to talk about benefiting others is indeed quite ridiculous. Therefore, for everyone, ethical discipline is truly extremely important. Generosity is also very important, but these qualities must be built up step by step. If there is no ethical discipline, then nothing can be accomplished at all. For example, our revered master, because his discipline was so pure, his disciples, even though it is the degenerate age, there may still be some who are not pure, but for the most part they place great importance on ethical discipline. Whether it is highly accomplished monks and masters who value discipline greatly, or ordinary practitioners who take discipline seriously, their other virtues flourish and grow. So this is very important. Therefore, without the slightest mix of worldly pursuits or attachment to worldly things, but instead aspiring for the higher rebirths of humans and gods, one does not seek worldly merit and fortune in this life or the next, but rather, out of the wish to benefit others and to accomplish the fully awakened mind of bodhicitta, one carefully upholds the 3 sets of vows. Here, the precepts mentioned in the 37 practices of a bodhisattva are not limited to the individual liberation vows alone, nor are they just the bodhisattva vows. They refer to all 3 sets of vows. A couple of days ago, I also transmitted to everyone the ritual for receiving the 3 sets of vows as taught by His Holiness. This is the conduct of all Buddhist children in practicing the precepts. As stated in the Jewel Garland Treatise, upholding precepts and benefiting others in action, this is the discipline of the Mahayana tradition. In the way of the Bodhisattva, it states that having the intention to abandon wrongdoing is called the perfection of morality. That is to say, when we possess the intention to abandon evil, at that time the perfection of morality is complete. For each of the perfections here, its essence and its categories are explained, as well as its merits and the faults of not practicing it. This is the method used to explain all 6 perfections. It is always like this. To eliminate all actions that harm others, as well as the intention to abandon the distorted thoughts that are the causes of such harm, we must cultivate the resolve to abandon these. This very resolve is the essence of the perfection of morality. That is to say, all offenses established by the Buddha and natural offenses, or the essential precepts that ought to be carefully taken in a general sense, are all comprehensively included within the Buddha established and the natural offenses. Or those that should be taken. Those that should be taken are also included here. What is this called? It is called the precept of strictly refraining from evil actions. Generally, pratimoksha precepts strictly uphold refraining from evil actions. Virtuous practices like the 6 perfections, not yet arisen in one's continuum, if they arise today, and for those that have already arisen, to ensure they are not destroyed, and to let them increase more and more. This is called the precept of gathering virtuous qualities. This is mainly the focus of the Bodhisattva precepts, the precepts of enhancing virtuous qualities. To properly accomplish the benefit of all sentient beings, bringing them blameless benefit in this life and future lives. This is the precept of benefiting sentient beings, generally Vajrayana Tantric precepts, beneficial to sentient beings in this and future lives. This is called the precept of benefiting sentient beings. The essence of the precepts is established as the generation of bodhicitta. From the perspective of the precept of strictly refraining from evil actions, the main point is to eliminate all intrinsic non-virtues. The foundation of all precepts is actually the practice of the 10 virtues, especially the elimination of the 10 non-virtuous actions. We should not give rise to the intention to commit these 10 non-virtuous actions. Everyone should also keep this in mind. When we studied the wish-fulfilling treasury this time, we could also feel that when people's overall merit declines, it is very much related to engaging in the 10 non-virtues. This also applies to individuals. If a practitioner lacks even the basic moral character of refraining from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and so on, if they do not possess these fundamental qualities, indeed, this is truly a matter of Buddhist moral education. Back in year 2011, I went to Beijing Normal University. They really wanted me to talk about the 10 virtuous actions. At the time, I don't know how well I explained it. I don't remember now. Anyway, I did talk to them about it back then. Using the perspective of modern people, I spoke about the importance of the 10 virtues. And also the Mahayana Sutra spoken by the Dragon King Sagara as taught by the Buddha. I think I also gave a talk on it in 2016. Actually, for us, if there are no other specific needs for those you are teaching, you should also talk more about the 10 virtues in the future. Look at Atisha, for example. He was called Taking Refuge Guru and Generating Bodhicitta Guru, these things. So for you in the future, if there's nothing else in particular to cover elsewhere, it's perfectly fine to talk about the 10 virtues every day. Actually, these 10 virtues are truly very important, no matter which country you go to nowadays. The 10 virtues are relevant everywhere. You don't even have to talk about Buddhism. Just teaching about moral character is enough. So if these are lacking, it may be difficult for one's personal practice to improve. And from the perspective of the whole world, it is also extremely important here regarding all the vows and trainings one aspires to undertake, as well as the distinctions between root and secondary downfalls. I will not elaborate in detail. Originally, the author had material on the Vinaya, the root and secondary aspects of the trainings, the faults of downfalls, and the merits of taking vows. How these are explained in the Pratimoksha, Bodhisattva and Vajrayana vows, there is certainly a great deal to cover. Rongzom Pandita specifically analyzed the Vinaya, and there is a treatise on this that is especially good. Next, let's talk about the faults of breaking the precepts. The Prajnaparamita Sutra says this: those who break the precepts will find it difficult even to accomplish their own benefit, let alone benefit others. The ripened result of breaking the precepts is to be reborn in the hell realms as animals, or in the world of Yama, the Lord of Death. If one does not properly uphold the precepts, one will definitely fall into the 3 lower realms. That means falling into hell, becoming an animal or a hungry ghost. Yama is actually another name for a type of hungry ghost. Furthermore, in the compendium of Prajnaparamita Sutra, it is said, if one breaks the precepts, one cannot even benefit oneself, let alone have the power to benefit others. Within these teachings, many faults of breaking the precepts are explained. As for the merits of upholding the precepts, the letter to a friend says, the precepts are like the great earth, both in movement and stillness. They are the foundation of all virtues. In addition, there are many other scriptural proofs. As for the so-called no worldly aspirations, in that verse from the 37 practices of a bodhisattva, what does no worldly aspirations refer to? According to the ornament of the Mahayana Sutras, it means not seeking precepts for future lives. For example, when taking precepts, we might think, in my next life, I want to be reborn in heavenly realms, or I want to become a dignified, beautiful, wealthy, and prosperous person. In fact, such craving for future lives is also something to be avoided and abandoned according to Mahayana Buddhism. One should uphold precepts for the sake of liberation and for the cause of omniscience. I want to attain liberation from the cycle of rebirth within the 3 realms, achieve the fully enlightened state of a Buddha who knows all. Therefore, I take the precepts. This is the purpose of taking precepts. It's not that when I take the precepts, others will say, wow, this person has become a monk. This person has become a bodhisattva. He observes the 8 precepts. How impressive. Actually, everyone may have such worldly thoughts, but these are not very good. On this, Atisha also spoke in the same way. To make this life dignified and the next life happy, one should always uphold all precepts. He also said, the root of all virtues in life is the aspiration to adopt and uphold the precepts. And he said that the most supreme precept is the inner peace of the mind. If the mind is at peace, there are fewer afflictions. If there are no afflictions, the precepts remain pure. If the mind is not pure, one moment you feel greed, the next moment anger arises, and then you say all sorts of things, then do all kinds of things. In the end, you break the precepts yourself. All sorts of problems can arise as well. As a result, both oneself and others suffer. There is suffering in this life and the next. Gompawa Rinpoche also said, the root of the precepts is relying on virtuous friends. If you want to uphold the precepts, in Venerable Longchenpa's The Wish-Fulfilling Treasury, this will also be discussed later on. If you often associate with good friends, then your precepts will not be broken, and your study and contemplation will also improve. But if you spend all your time with people of questionable character, then there is little hope for you. In a few days, everything will fall apart for you. Bodhisattva Rinpoche also said, the foundation of all virtues is strict observance of precepts and vows. If you do not possess such precepts, or if your precepts are not pure, then this will become an obstacle to all virtues and attainments. The root of virtue is the precepts. If you do not possess the precepts, in fact, if you lack the precepts, in the end you will have no interest in study and contemplation, nor any interest in benefiting sentient beings. Because one's mental continuum has already been corrupted by impure defilements, as a result, the mind simply cannot settle. That is why we often speak of morality, concentration, and wisdom. First comes morality, then concentration, and only then does wisdom arise. This is the sequence of morality, concentration, and wisdom. Without morality, concentration is impossible. Without concentration, wisdom is impossible. This is the fundamental basis. It is also said that to achieve pure precepts, one must not be attached to the pleasures of desire in the past, present, or future. For beings in the desire realm, this may mean being attached to people and things. Whether it is forms from the past or people from the past, there is attachment, and the same goes for the present. Will I be able to obtain this in the future? Such attachments and clinging and so on. Charupaghesh also said a cause of obtaining a precious human rebirth is practicing the wish-fulfilling jewel of precepts and relying wholeheartedly on one's own continuum. One must protect the purity from any defilement. Actually, if we want to obtain a human body, at the very least, we need to have one precept. For example, the 8 precepts or the layperson's precepts. If you don't have such precepts, you won't be able to obtain a human body in your next life. That's why we often say, for monastics, it's even more so, needless to say. The merit of monastic precepts is extremely great. Even if you can't become a monastic, if you don't have such an opportunity in this life, then on some special occasions, observe the 8 precepts, the 5 lay precepts, the 3 lay precepts, or some of the lay precepts. This is extremely important. If you don't even have the foundation of a single precept, then in your next life you definitely won't be able to be reborn as a human. You definitely won't be able to be reborn in a favorable realm, because this is the very foundation. At the beginning of the great perfection of Manjushri, His Holiness also explained this very clearly. So, if you want to attain the fruition of a favorable rebirth, you must have a foundation in precepts. I distinctly remember that this particular point in Khenpo Ajun's preliminary practice memo is also explained very clearly. So generally speaking, from a general perspective, as lay people, we often tend to think about things in a certain way. And for monastics, if you are not tainted by afflictions, and you possess the precept essence in your own continuum, then that's self-explanatory. But after all, monastics are a minority. And if you are a layperson, you should also. We monastics often confer the 3 precepts to them, or transmit the 5 precepts, and the ritual for this is relatively simple. If this is not the case, or perhaps we confer the 8 precepts for lay practitioners, which can be received several times a year or within a year, just as some of our precept texts mention, even if it's just not killing during the day, as it seems to be stated in the preliminary practice memo, I do not kill elephants, I do not kill lions, I do not kill fine horses, I do not kill national presidents, making such vows. This also brings great merit, because you have a mind intent on refraining from evil. If you simply refrain from killing and do nothing else, it doesn't necessarily generate merit. But if you think this way in your heart and then make such vows, then there is tremendous merit. So if you uphold such precepts, it is also said here that this is a cause for obtaining a precious human rebirth. Practicing the precepts is a wish-fulfilling jewel. Rely on them and strive to maintain purity. If, due to one's own afflictions or because of various environmental factors, there is some damage for these reasons, one should frequently confess and repair it. Repair what can be repaired. And for what cannot be repaired, confess it yourself. This is very important. Venerable Shakyapa said, because it is the basis for the path to liberation and omniscience, therefore one must uphold pure precepts. Venerable Karongpa also sincerely admonished that when famine occurs, everyone focuses all their attention on barley, and he hoped that everyone would value the precepts just as much. For example, during a famine, everyone thinks about food. So, as a practitioner, everyone should think about the precepts and how to uphold them. In fact, within a Dharma center, if everyone places great importance on the precepts, then the atmosphere of the Dharma center will be completely different, truly so. Because if the precepts are upheld purely, at the very least, the mind will be very calm. If the mind is calm, then studying and contemplating the teachings becomes much easier. So some of us, including Dharma teachers and some of our monastics, they keep their precepts very purely, even something as small as, well, not really that small, such as not eating after noon. They have always maintained these practices. We especially rejoice in this. Among both our male and female practitioners, for example, in the summer, everyone is able to observe the rain's retreat, and usually for many years they have not eaten after noon. There are also some lay practitioners who often observe the 8 precepts on the 8th, 15th and 30th of the lunar month, and they also uphold the precepts they have received themselves. In this way, everyone places great importance on the precepts. If everyone values the precepts, when such an atmosphere exists, but if everyone looks down on those who keep the precepts, saying, "Oh, why are you even keeping precepts?" In some places where the environment isn't so good, if someone keeps the precepts, others might say, "Wow, you think you're so great." Or, "Oh, have you already received the precepts?" Or, "Does this mean you've become an arhat from now on?" They use all kinds of mocking tones to ridicule others. This is really not good at all. So this great master also said, when people are suffering from famine, their attention is focused on food, on what they can eat. For practitioners, we should also focus our attention on the precepts. On the foundation of the precepts, we then engage in study and contemplation. And if we then go on to spread the Dharma, the strength and impact will be completely different. If our own minds are still deeply defiled and impure, then whatever we might say to others is truly like a person without a nose mocking others, and that is not a good thing at all. It's a reflection of our own inner state. Others will always point fingers and talk about you. If you want to keep the precepts pure, you won't be able to do it without contemplating karma and its results. One aspect is, what are the consequences of breaking the precepts in future lives? I must uphold the precepts well. If you don't reflect on these things, I'm afraid you probably won't be able to maintain purity. Therefore, contemplating cause and effect is the key. Many great masters of the past were also like this. Venerable Sharawa also once said, "Whatever you do, you must rely on the authentic Dharma. Among them, act according to what is stated in the Vinaya Pitaka." There's no need to repeat it. No matter what Dharma practice you engage in, precepts are very important. If your precepts are very pure, your mind will be pure and deeply contemplative. Everything you do will have depth, and you will feel at ease and joyful. Everything will make you happy and tolerant. You won't be troubled every day. Every day won't be filled with suffering. Every day won't be like that. Generally, for those whose precepts aren't pure, every day is filled with their own suffering, and others also suffer because of it. Whether monastics or lay people with pure precepts, they experience no suffering. They feel very at ease and joyful, extremely happy, and the results are also excellent. All these scriptural teachings are simply saying that precepts are the foundation of all virtues. To keep precepts pure, rely on good spiritual friends, eliminate greed, and contemplate karma's results. Follow the subtle acceptances and rejections outlined in the precepts. In addition, Rinpoche Thogme Sangpo himself also repeatedly emphasized, how exactly did he put that then? Precepts are truly the very root of all virtues. Harming other living beings is like a potent poison and must be completely abandoned. Precepts are the foundation of all virtues. If you harm others, it is just like poison. We must absolutely eliminate this. At the very least, whether directly or indirectly, do not harm any sentient being. This is the bare minimum. You could say this is our bottom line. As a Mahayana Buddhist, it is also said to know that the study of the Buddha's precepts is more important than life itself, to maintain constant mindfulness and vigilance, not to be tainted by the stain of transgression even for a moment, to uphold the precepts oneself and encourage others to do the same. He also vowed to practice and uphold the 3 sets of precepts in this way.
Bandara Badma Sodargye